Hello, in this video I'm going to be discussing some of the problems in regard to meaning, and particularly in meaning in relation to direction and individual direction. And I want to bring up some issues that arise when we're addressing nihilism as a condition, and a direct condition, and existentialism as a condition, as well as the synthetic way and synthetic ways that resolve these meaning crises at the heart of both nihilism and existentialism, that is really asking us, what should we do with our lives, and how can we live meaningful lives? And what's the use to doing anything, or why does anything I do even matter? Or why does anything even matter? And simply just getting out of this space of perpetual questioning of reality, essentially, through the addressing the meaningless or the potential meaninglessness of various aspects of our perceptions, and our perceptions in relation to these subject-object relations, in which we imbue our perceptions with meaning, and our perceptions are embedded with meaning, but the universe that's indifferent doesn't seem to have this same inherent meaning. It's through perceptions that this meaning comes into existence. And it's through these perceptions that we come to recognize the meaning, and we come to recognize the significance and the relevance of that meaning in relation to ourselves, and ourselves in relation to that meaning, and why that should matter anyway, why what we perceive matters anyway, if, say, the next moment it's fleeting and gone, and doesn't seem to have the same significance as it once did. Or at an upcoming moment, this moment seems to be so thrilling and enjoyable that we don't necessarily want it to go and leave, or to never come back again. We like to realize these positive states and enjoy them when they come, and tend to want to have a proclivity to prolong them and experience more of them throughout our lifespan. So it's through recognizing often our direct perceptions that we come to understand this meaning. And the nihilism is embedded in when we come to question, well, why should we do anything? And what's the purpose to life and living? And what really gives anything significance? And why should we do anything? Why should we even get out of bed in the morning? Which is a really good question that the nihilist poses regarding the human condition, and that the existentialists have an implicit response to, and an explicit response. On one end, they implicitly respond to the nihilist, agreeing that it's really you at the end of the day that decides whether or not something has significance. And so there's no intrinsic meaning to the universe or things, and we can characterize various objects within our perceptions as being meaningless and not having matter. And so there's these valid questions regarding, well, is there a point to anything? Why is this important over that? What's meaningful to me as an individual? I can recognize the meaning in direct experiences and objects, and retain knowledge and develop knowledge in my own understanding through self-knowledge of these subject-object relations. But to actually render a meaning that transcends those indifferent qualities that the universe imbues in relation to some purpose that the universe has for us as individuals seems rather pointless and trivial. And that gives us a deeper sense of meaningless, and can embolden our pain and deepen pain in relation to a sense of meaningless, and demotivate us to a point where, well, why should I do this over that? Is there any point to doing this? And what the existentialists attempt to do is they attempt to respond to that question, saying that we can make these things meaningful because we have already done so, and it seems to be natural to our perceptions that there's a meaning there that occurs that has a significance and value, but it has this significance and value through the self and through our agentic processes. And it's through these agentic processes that we will, and that we engage in, that we cultivate meaning through our direct interest, our personal autonomy that individuates us from other people, and that allows us to develop unique interests with regards to things and develop our own interpretations, our own individual perspectives on regards to various subject-object relations, and deepens our lives and interactions with the world through our direct perceptual experiences. And this is a way of creating meaning and also creating engagement, and also allows us to lead more meaningful lives by allowing us to become more productive and really motivating us to become more productive in these directions that we set ourselves through the development of meaning that's direct to our perceptions and that engages us in the world of living and embodying meaningful living. And these are ways of responding to these fundamental questions that we can encounter as practical problems in our everyday lives, and regarding what should we do if everything's meaningless? What's the point in doing anything at all? Why does this matter? Why should I do that? Why should I do anything at all? Why should I do anything today? What should I do? Is there a reason to doing anything? And these all have to do with questions that relate not just to meaning, but also action in the world and engagement in the world that is all important to living a meaningful lives. Because it's not just meaning, whether or not meaning exists as, say, being able to recognize a meaning, it having knowledge and information, and it actually directly meaning something within an analytical sense or an explicit sense, that this is what this means, directly explaining or representing a category, but rather to also actively engage in a process that involves engagement that is important to meaning, and responding to these questions of existentialism and nihilism with regard to the human condition. So meaning, when we're asking what is meaningful, we're not just asking whether or not it has an explicit meaning or a semantic meaning, a meaning of interpretation and representation, but a meaning of an action and a meaning of activity, and that actively engages all aspects of the self and all the precepts of the self through various perceptions, motivations, emotions, feelings, actions, responses, our values and virtues, our strengths, and these higher order psychological, perceptual, and behavioral characteristics that we engage in everyday life, and that keeps us engaged in everyday life, which is essential to this defining characteristic of what it means to live a meaningful life. So when we're looking at problems of meaning, we're often looking at direct issues that relate also to direction in association with meaning. What should I do? What should I do? Prescribe some set of processes that would have some order in relation to behaviors that are occurring in time, in various positions in time, and require various responses. And that influence through that process the cultivation and enrichment and expansion of meaning that directly impact the well-being of an individual, either positively or negatively, and that itself can imbue value and significance that are also these component processes to meaning, and which we perceive different types of meaning, whether or not something is meaningless, trivial, something that matters, something that's meaningful, something that has a high meaning value or low meaning value, something that conveys greater information or less information, or that we can establish a lot of knowledge from, or we have little knowledge from, something that's very useful in the moment, something that's not really useful in the moment, and something that we can combine with other thoughts and ideas in multiple ways, so it has a lot of use value and utility value, or something that doesn't really have too much utility value. And these are all various dimensions of meaning that have directions when we engage in them more proactively, and we enhance the meaning to them. And we can respond to these questions more succinctly and authentically when we ask questions that relate the self directly to the meaning that's direct to our perceptions, but also directly relevant to what matters to us as individuals in our lives. So when we ask questions regarding, well, what would I have liked to accomplish by the time I've died or I'm on my deathbed. This allows us to think about the things that we say like to do or would like to do and have engaged in, allowing us to access various aspects of the self in which we find our interests and various aspects of the self that we perceive as inherently meaningful, and we have positive or negative relations to, and can formulate meaning in association with that will guide our future behaviors and perceptions in relation to that question, and which can uncover our strengths and what we find meaningful. And say we have a pleasant experience, we might want to ask, well, what made that pleasant experience good, and why was that such a meaningful experience for me, or why did that have the same impact as it did? Or likewise, we can ask that about a negative experience and also retain valuable meaning and develop a direction and association to response to avoiding, say, negative situations or addressing negative situations, and also promoting or looking towards more positive ways of behaving and setting forth positive directions by asking, well, why was that so negative? Why was that so bad? Why did that event have that negative impact it did on me? And why does it even matter? If everything's meaningless, why do these bad events have the effect that they do on me? And asking that question can allow us to develop awareness and cognizance of various behaviors and perceptions associated with those events and situations, in which we can hone in on various aspects and cultivate a greater sense of meaning and direction in association to those various aspects of our experiences. And we can learn even through those negative experiences that there's plenty of good things that can broaden our perceptions and behaviors in relation to negative events or negative perceptions of events, and move in a more optimizing direction towards positive meanings that we construct through our proactive processes involved directly in addressing those negative meaning interpretations and cultivating more positive interpretations by looking at the good in the bad and learning how we can utilize our strengths to more effectively address where we might have weaknesses or we might perceive negatives and work on areas to address that, which